So I got on the old bag and I started dancing around, moving around, jabbing about, and thought, how was Ali doing it? And how was old Henry doing it? And I was boom, 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 boom. What club do you box at then? I said, I've never been to a club, Mr. Art. He said, you've never been to a club? He said, well, that's fantastic. He said, you're a natural boy. He said, mate, tell me you come up here next week. So from the greatest to height that you could ever be, and down to a nothingness, I was just completely, because for stealing cars, you know, I mean, my mum couldn't cope anymore, you know, I was like a naughty boy. He said, I know you've been stealing my gear because someone told me about it, all right? I said, well, what are you going to do about it? He went bang, and I was on the deck. And anyway, I went over to this rail and this line, go and touch it, you'll be so brave. I thought, oh, what's that? Who's, you know, it's like, okay. The Schoolboy British Championship of UK is the blue corner, Mr. Little Paul Huggins. And I went, yeah, Priory Road School. I went, jump. I used to do the business, you know, but also I was a naughty boy again. And that's what I used to be like. But I was unbeaten in 15 of my first professional fights, which weren't bad, you know. And so that was the end of it. And I went off to Amsterdam, and that's where we started making plans. And I went over and put a balaclava over my head, loaded the shotgun up with the old cartridges, and sat in the dark, waiting for him, you see. I just started laughing, you know, and he, Huggins, I'll give you something to laugh about in a minute. He said, now behave yourself.
All right, so today, thank you, John Lawson. We finally have Paul Huggins with us, author of Knocking Out My Demons.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're not going pheasant hunting today, but this is a story of redemption and boxing, interacting with the cartel, escape to Thailand, getting arrested, sentencing.
Quite a few.
Vicious attack with a shotgun. Going to India. Quite a journey. Paul's had quite a journey, but what's important, we'll get to this at the end, is what he's doing now with the young people, helping them rehabilitate, trying to steer them into sports. Put your energy into boxing, MMA, whatever it is. Don't get gangsteritis, kids, because it ends in the prison, police, and death. So, huge thank you for coming on, Paul.
Huge thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Sean. Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Very smartly dressed.
Yes, all down to my watch, because I would have come in a pair of tracksuit bottoms.
Look how boring my shoes are compared to Paul's. Can you lift this?
Let's have a look.
Look at them.
Beautiful. Little shoe off.
Cloth there, look.
Oh, they're brilliant. Oh, sorry. Here you go.
Knock away.
So Paul, where and when did this whole adventure begin?
I was born in Hastings in 1961. The lovely town called Hastings, as it is at the 1066 country, as we all know it as, where William the Conqueror came along in 1066 from Normandy and took Harold's eye out. So the legend has it, with an arrow. And so here we have it. Here I am. But Hastings is my hometown.
And because of that anecdote, does everybody in Hastings have the fighting spirit?
Yeah.
I'm not too sure about that, really. I've tried putting my gloves on with many of them, and I've come unstuck a couple of times as well. But there is it's a great community, and they get behind each other.
Yeah.
And if there's somebody there that's doing well and shows promise, then people will be there behind them and give them all their support.
Lovely.
So what was it like for you as a nipper?
Well, I when I was, I can remember when I was about two, from when I was two, and then I was getting on for 3. My dad left because he was a bit of a travelling man. Worked on the the ships and in the merchant navy, and there was always a bit of confrontation and stuff, I suppose, and because we weren't there, and so my mum and dad sort of drifted apart, really.
Was he a brawler then?
When he was a good fighter, yeah, he was well respected in the town, and in that book there's a picture of me sort of like in a taking on all comers one day down in the old town. We made this ring out of scaffold poles. And there was no the canvas on the floor was a sail from one of the boats over the beach, and it was concrete. And I can remember a story from my dad that he was in the circus up on the Oval, and his mate Phil Barker said to him, "Go on, get in there." He said, "They're taking on all comers, Ken. Get in there and have a go." And reluctantly, the old man said, "Well, I'll give it a go." And he went in there, and I mean, Dad was always a bit sort of keen with his head. And this guy jabbed him a few times, so he stuck one on him like that and knocked him spark out, and decided to make a run for it with all the fair people chasing him. But he did win the fight, albeit on a technical knockout, but it was technical, I must admit. But Dad, you know, he could handle himself back in the day.
So that leads to the next one, your mum's new man.
Well, yeah, that was a wonderful thing, really, in the eyes of my mother. But he come along when I was about 3, John, and he was a lovely man, and he was gentle and he was kind. And then my brother come from that, Dean, my youngest brother. I got an older brother, Tony, who's still around with us. Fantastic ventures that me and him had. Dean, he's a good lad, and he works hard. He's got a good family of his own and stuff. But yeah, John was a good man, and he passed away a few years ago, or 10 years ago, of cancer. And my mum's gone as well. But he was the best thing, I think, that happened to my mum after my dad, and they stayed together until the last days.
Oh, so how lovely.
Lovely, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a building man, and could do anything around the house. Always took us out down, and I still remember I used to bring sweets home, and I used to wait for him on the old gate, waiting for him when I was about 3 or 4. I knew he was going to bring sweets on Friday because it was his payday. So he sort of bought that was my friendship and my love that was towards him. But as I grew older, I realised that, because I didn't want him around, you know, to start with. I used to scream blue murder, and it was awful because I just didn't want them sleeping together. I was so jealous of my mother, you know, and in the end, you know, I even threatened to jump out of the window once if he. I used to wait with a piece of cotton wool round my arm one day there, and when they come home on the Friday night after they'd been out, I'd tied it to my arm and to her bedroom door, and then my arm went like that, and I knew they was trying to get into bed together, and I went screaming and hollering and wouldn't let them, you know, just wouldn't let them sleep together. But they did it. They must have, whether it was the world or was away, because along came Dean, you know. But but I was a very jealous little boy and insecure, I should imagine.
Were you jealous of your brother coming along?
No.
No,
I loved my little brother Dean, and yeah, we grew up, and he was 5 years different from me. So I mean, but he's a good lad. Dean is, yeah, got a lovely family.
So you were the supportive older brother.
I had a supportive older brother who was Tony, and yeah, he had his own problems in life. You know, a bit of a character himself. Got locked up for going down the pub one day there, and somebody threatened his family, so he marched along to the pub and just let 2 barrels off through the window, because the kiddie was through the other side of the window. We missed him, fortunately. But he was a bit like that, you know. But we had some fantastic times together, me and Tony, in the pubs and things, and there's a few funny stories to tell about me and him in that book. I mean, amazing, really.
What were you guys like in school?
Oh, well, Tony, I'm not too sure what he was like, because he was like, he just done his own thing, because he's older than me, 9 years older than me, and he used to take me to school. He used to take me to school when I was 5 years old, and I didn't want to go to school before then, and so I had to go, because the schoolboy man come along, and he said, if you don't send your boy to school, Mrs. Huggins, we're going to have to, we're having to sort you something out with you. So she had to take me to school. Well, he took me to school. And when he left me at the school gates, often or not, I was off again, so I didn't have a lot of schooling, but we used to spend most of our time, me and my schoolmates that didn't go to school either, catching lizards and snakes and stuff, and selling them in the pet shop for £1, which weren't too bad back in the day,
Were you into the sports at school?
When you did go in?
Well, I was competitive, I was very competitive, and I was only little, because I'm only little now, but, I was even littler then, obviously, one of the smallest boys in the school. And so I felt like I had to sort of prove something, I suppose, and I didn't mind a challenge or a bit of competition. So I used to always run to win, and I did a lot of that. And by the time I was 9 years old, my mate, who went to the boxing club along the West Hill Boys Club, he said, "Do you want to come to the boxing?" And my mum, she couldn't wait to get rid of me, because, she said, "You've got to go there." She said, "Get you out and do something worthwhile." I said, "All right, Mum." She said, "Make sure you learn some discipline and learn to behave yourself." I said, "I don't know about that discipline, Mum, but I will go. I'll have a look, see what I think." Anyway, we went there, and I was 9 years old. West Hill Boys Club, and I can remember putting his old smelly pair of gloves on, and it was like the place looked like a bomb had hit it in the Luftwaffe war, and the paint was off the walls, and the ring was like just had rips in the floor and everything else, and it was rough and ready, and it was like full of kids and good old boys there like Jimmy Hart and Bill O'Rourke, and I thought, right, I'm going to put a pair of gloves on then, and I'm going to see what I'm going to do on that bag. Okay, I've seen Muhammad Ali and Henry Cooper. I've seen them doing it on television. So I got on the old bag and I started dancing around, moving around, jabbing about, and thought, how was Ali doing it? And there was old Henry doing it, and I was bum, 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 like that. And all of a sudden I peeked out of the corner of my eye, because I liked a bit of attention, and I realised that everybody was standing there watching me. Anyway, the bell went, and I stayed for a little rest, and then Jim come up to me, and Jim Hart, he said, "What club do you box at then?" I said, "I've never been to a club, Mr. Hart." He said, "You've never been to a club?" He said, "Well, that's fantastic." He said, "You're a natural boy." He said, "Mate, tell you come up here next week." So when I went home that day, I said, "Mum, I found it fantastic. It was really good. They all looked at me and watched me doing what I love doing, and I was really good." And I thought, "Oh, I'm going to go next week." So from there, I started boxing.
Wow.
Which was a good thing. But before that, I've got to tell you a little story. I had a few near-death experiences when I was growing up. And one's very, very, very frightening, scary one is when we used to go down to the railway line, and we used to go down there to catch snakes and stuff like that, because as I said, we sold them for £1. We got £1 in the shop down the old town pet shop. So there was this great big tunnel, and it's in Orr Village Station, and it's called the Mile Long Tunnel because it is about a mile long. It takes a little while to get through there on the train, and we used to walk through that tunnel, on Saturday mornings. We used to go and have a little crew of us, and we used to walk through there, and as soon as you got in there a little way, it was pitch black, because it was morning. It went round in the bend, so you got round to this bend bit, and that was it. You couldn't see anything. But the way we used to listen to see if there was a train coming was to put our ears to the line, and then you could hear it rumbling. So one day, but 2 trains come through one day, so we didn't know which way to run, and so we couldn't see nothing anyway, so like we should run along the side of the wall and find something like a gap, and then we used to jump in, and the trains used about 4 or 5, 10 seconds later used to come streaming past us, like, you know. And we never did tell her, my mother about it. I did tell her later on in life, but she gave me a good hiding, even when I was 22. But after that, she said, "You little..." She said. And I was doing a weigh-in for a fight at the Albert Hall, but I won it that night for her. But anyway, before you go into the tunnel, there was the high rail. And we didn't know it was live. But my friend, Steve Meppen, he jumped on the top of this rail, right? I don't know how he knew it. He jumped from the ground onto the top of it, and then jumped back off. And I thought, and it was like something going in my head. Go and grab that rail and see it. Show how brave you are to your friends. And as I've been 9 years old and seen him jump on it and jump off, because it was a frightening, scary rail. You know, you knew it was something was not quite right with it, but it was sitting there, it was quiet, it was like a beast, ready to get you. And anyway, I went over to this rail and this line, go and touch it, you'll be so brave. I thought, oh, what's that? Who's, you know, it's like, okay. But it was just my own ego, I suppose. But I went like that on this rail, and then I went, no, not like that, grab it. So I sort of grabbed it, and it was awful. Imagine, well, it was like a sledgehammer going into my body, and I just fell back, like went straight back, jumped up, terrified, ran home, grabbed my mum, didn't say a thing. She said, "What's happened to you? You look like you've been blooming seen a ghost. What's going on? What's all wrong with you?" I never said anything. I was just petrified. Anyway, on the Monday, I went to the railway station, used to cross over the bridge there, or village station. And I said to the railway master, I said, because we used to get bundles of paper for the school, and they used to get things with them, pens and all that stuff. And I said to him, I was a bit shrewd back then, I said, Mister, what do those, what's in that rail? What is it? He said, that don't you, I said, don't you, he said, don't you ever touch that rail. I said, why? What is it then? And he said, there's 750 volts going through that rail and 30,000 amps.
Wow.
Imagine that, a little kid of 9 years old grabbing hold of that.
I'm surprised you didn't die.
Unbelievable. So that was my first death experience. Anyway, going back onto it, I ended up sort of, at the age of 14, because we used to have some fantastic times in the country though. We used to go out and go travelling, and we used to walk through the tunnel, we used to collect birds' eggs back then, and we was all adventurous, you know. We had a guy, one of the lads, his name was German, and he'd climb up any tree, you know, and we'd right up there in the middle of nowhere in the sky, like a big sycamore trees where all the rooks were nesting, and he used to get all the eggs for them. We used to all share them out, and we had a fantastic collection. I still got them, about 105 different birds, different varieties of birds. Although it was made illegal 25 years ago, but if you collected them before that, it was like collecting butterflies. You know, we never took them all out of the nest. We used to leave some so they could breed and stuff. But German was the hitman of tree climbing, you know. I mean, he's the sort of guy that would go up a tree, and when the branches snapped and he come falling back down again and hit the deck, which he did do in Rye once, like after going for the rook's eggs, he got back up again, brushed himself down and started climbing back up again. He was like that type of character. Wow. German, the hit Manhattan. So, but by the time I got to 14, after all these adventurous days and all that, and I was a bit of a naughty boy, you know, and, you know, the police had to take me home now and again for doing stuff and shoplifting and all that malarkey. And everybody's, even the West Hill Boys Club, they used to come to the courts just to try and get me off, because they said, he's got so much talent, this boy. And then anyway, at 14 years old, I got to all the way through the preliminaries, the semi, the quarters, the semis, and the counties and all the rest of it, Surrey and Sussex, and then all the way up to Scotland and Ireland and Wales. I mean, And I got to the schoolboy finals, you see, at 14 years old, and I was in the lowest weight. I was only about sort of like, I don't know how many kilos, but I was about, but in the lowest weight. And even to get into the lowest weight, I had to have this weight called Jeffrey, we called it, and it was made of lead. And we used to stick it down my pants so I could get on the scales and make the weight. See, I weren't cheating. I was only trying to get into the weight to get up the weight to fight to fight. So I weren't taking any advantage of that. Anyway, we used to say, "Is Jeffrey here? Yeah, Jeffrey's here. He's come along. He's on board now." And so we ain't got to worry. He's on board, so we're all right. So we used to put this Jeffrey down there, and I just used to scrape in the lowest weight to get in the thing. And I fought this guy called, from Wales, Kelvin Smart, and it was a fantastic fight, you know. I mean, Kelvin Smart went on to win the Lonsdale belt and everything else as a professional fighter, and he was the Welsh champion, and it was a fantastic fight. And after the third round, they said, "You've got it all to do, Paul. You've got to get out there and do what you've got to do. Just get in there, push forward, put your front foot down, tuck in and get stuck in." I said, "You don't have to tell me that. I know what I've got to do." Anyway, off I went, because you can't, you know, fighters get told what to do, but you do your own thing in the end. But you're nice to have a corner man there just to give you a spun and wash you down. But you do listen, but you don't really. You're just too focused on what you're doing, and the crowd don't make no difference because they shout out all sorts of things, but you can't hear them. It's just like, you know, you just focus. Anyway, the end of the third round went, and we got called into the centre of the ring, and they said by a majority decision, the schoolboy British Championship of UK is the blue corner, Mr. Little Paul Huggins. And I went, "Yeah, Priory School." I jumped up in the air, and everybody was screaming and all running around. It was fantastic. And then just imagine that, I'm as high as a kite. I just won the British Schoolboy Championship, and I got home after a fantastic evening that everybody was celebrating and stuff. And we got home, and then the day after we got home, there was a knock on the door, and it was a police officer and a probation officer. And they said, "Paul, go and pack your bag. We're taking you to Red Hill Approved School, which is in Surrey." So from the greatest to height that you could ever be, and down to a nothingness, I was just completely, because for stealing cars, you know. I mean, my mum couldn't cope anymore. You know, I was like a naughty boy. So there I was, locked in Red Hill, and it was quite scary really, because I was only a little lad, and there was some big black fellas in there and stuff, and they don't take no prisoners in prison, as you probably know, some of you.
What was your sentence?
It was 6 weeks, I think, but they didn't even take me to court. I think my mum had so much, or I was nicking cars or whatever I was doing, but they didn't even take me to court. They just come and got me and took me to Red Hill and thought, this will teach him a lesson. He'll sort himself out now, which I never did. And so, like, you know, I was there. And
what was your first day like going in?
Well, as we got to this big gate, I thought, flipping it, this is a castle, and it's surrounded by all these barbed wire fences, and I had this little bag, you know, with my clothes in it. I got through the castle gates, and they said, "You won't be needing them." And I said goodbye to the probation officer and the police officer, and like that, like with tears in my eyes, and I'm like a little 14-year-old and that, and they said, "Huggins." So like, I walked into the office, and he said, I sat down. He went, "Stand up, Huggins." I stood up, and he said, "Right, there won't be no slouching around in here." And immediately you're like talked to, like you got to sort of come to attention. I thought, what sort of place is this? You know, I can't be sort of playing up here by the looks of things. And so it was a little bit strict, but they sent me and waited into the dormitory, and then they all come back from their PE or whatever they did, and a big black lad, he come up to me and he started asking me questions, and he said, well, where'd you come from then? I said, well, I'm Hastings, I come from Hastings. He said, what's your name? And I went, Paul Huggins, proudly, because I'd just been a schoolboy champion. I thought, you must have heard of me, everyone's heard of Paul Huggins, didn't they? But no, there weren't no response, and I've deflated once again. Oh, you know. So, but he was a nice lad. He said, well, you just follow the line, go down to the thing and make sure when the bell rings and you can get your dinner and that. And he said, don't you worry. He said, I'll make sure you're all right. And he was like a nice lad, but and that was great. So that was the start of my penitentiary beginning. I was in there for 6 weeks.
What were your cellmates like?
Well, they weren't actually cellmates. It was a dormitory.
So it's like a dorm.
Yeah, but there was lots of. You had to stick up for yourself sometimes. I mean, once I got home after 6 weeks, but another ball store when I was in there, I had to sort this. There was somebody stole some stuff, like, and then I stole some stuff, like this black fella's locker. Sort of everybody was stealing everybody's stuff, so he just stole it. And this guy called Leroy, he come up to me and he went, "You've been stealing my gear, man." I said, "I've not been stealing your gear, Leroy." He said, "I know you've been stealing my gear because someone told me about it, all right?" I said, well, what are you going to do about it? He went, bang, and I was on the deck. And I leapt up again just so we could have a bit of rouse. And then the officer walked past, and I was about 15 then. So we didn't have a fight. But a good shot it was, because he loosened both of my teeth, and I ended up with 2 gold teeth, that one sitting indoors. But there was 2 nice little gold teeth there, and I said, nice one, Leroy. You know, those sort of things cost you a lot of money outside. But some people, I mean, they were killing themselves, kids in there. It was so depressing in there, you know. And I ended up in a children's home called Old Raw House when I come out of there. And it was Bill O'Rourke, run by a guy called Bill O'Rourke, was a lovely man, and his wife Teresa. And it was like I used to go to school then. And they made me go to school, and I used to learn things at school then, but. It was a good children's home, and I used to love going home at the weekends because I used to play up, and in the week in the children's home I used to be a good boy. So I was a bit of. My mother always called me a Jekyll and Hyde, and I still am, I think. But you never know. I think I got better these days, but
a little bit.
But yeah.
So, what about your love for Kentucky Fried Chicken?
And the year 1975.
1975. That was the year when I thought... 75. Was that the year before the schoolboy? Yeah, that was the year before I won the schoolboy championship, I think. And I thought, great. He ain't turned up. And I was going to get a bye through to the next round. And it was in the... I think it was the preliminaries, which was the one before this quarterfinals of the schoolboy championships, and a guy called Pat O'Mara, a lovely man, and his son was Mick O'Mara, a fantastic fighter at the West Hill Boys Club, and he went off and got this great, because I thought, I ain't fighting, yeah, and I can eat now, and he went off and got a great big bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I stuffed as much of it as I could down my neck, and then my lad turned up.
Oh!
So I was like, oh no! So I got in the ring and sort of fought with him, and after 3 rounds, I'm like, this Kentucky Fried Chicken was almost like coming out of my mouth, and so I got beat on a very small decision. But I thought, that was the chicken that beat me. But that was what happened there. But then the year after, I decided to behave myself and do what I could, you know.
Sorry. So next we have the crash landing.
The crash landing. That was where the crash landing. See, we're going
into it.
We're jumping to and fro. Because the crash landing was what I just talked about. But I'm going to wait for you to ask questions next.
Wow.
Next, well, we did Gosport detention, didn't we?
Yeah, because we done
And
the
you go
Gosport.
back home.
Back at home.
We ain't done the Gosport yet.
Oh, okay.
Because that was what happened after the Red Hill one. See, and then I got the Gosport detention for thieving cars again. And that was when I was about 14 as well. And it was very strict in there. That was down there, and then they was all Navy officers in there, you know. And one day, they were so strict. They said we was out and picking potatoes and stuff. And he went and was talking to one of the lads, and he went, "Huggins." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Come here." "Yes, sir." He said, "You got plenty of energy, lad, have you?" I said, "Why is that, sir?" He said, "Because you keep talking, son." He said, "You see that mat over there in that field? That horse there, Matt," he said, "run over there, pick it up by that handle and drag it up and down that football pitch for me." I said, "You having a laugh, sir?" We're not sort of basically like, "No, get yourself over there now, lad," because that's how it was down there. There was all military and naval officers and stuff. So I found myself running up and down with this thing until I was absolutely knackered. And then he called me back over. He said, "Feel like talking now, Huggins?" I said, "I don't think so, sir." And he said, "Well, carry on with what you're doing, lad, and don't let me hear you speaking again, okay?" So that's the sort of people we were dealing with. So I got out of there after whatever it was, 3 months. And that was my first taste of a very strict penitentiary system.
And did that reform you, make you rethink the car thefts?
No.
At least you're honest.
Honestly, it really didn't. And I thought, well, I better be a bit more careful, you know. And my trainer said to me, "You shouldn't." My Johnny Gray, lovely man. He was my fantastic trainer. And he said, I always remember it. He said, "If you're going to nick something worth nicking and do something worth doing." He said, you know, and it was true. And I ended up sort of like, in the end, starting to be reformed when I went to Old Raw House. And that was like with Bill O'Rourke, who used to be a boxer as well. And then I started going to school. And I started trying to learn, and they said you could do so much better and all the rest of it. And so I finished school at the age of 16, and then I went to Borstal just before, you know, just after that.
Car theft again.
Yeah.
And robbery. And then I come out of jail, and they said, Dave Harris come up to me and he said, "Do you want to turn to be a professional fighter, Paul?" He said, "You've got so much talent, and you know, it could be your saviour." And I said, "Yeah, I'd like that." So that was when I was about 18, you know. And so I had an apprenticeship as a plumber as well. But after flooding a couple of people out in that, I decided that I think boxing must be a bit better, and which we did. I went up to the Thomas à Becket in the Old Kent Road. We drove up there in Dave's little Fiat. They used to like his Fiats, and we went in, and the Boxing Board of Control come in, you know, and that was the governing body, and still is the governing body, I do believe. And I got in there. I don't know who the chap was that I was sparring with, but they got you in the ring in the gym upstairs above the pub there in the old Thomas à Becket there. Some great fighters have been through there, you know, Duran and Ali and Henry Cooper. That was his gym he used to train in. And after 3 rounds, they went, "Yeah, there's your ticket. You're a professional boxer." So that was brilliant. I was made up with that. And so the first fight I had was at the Grosvenor Hotel up in Park Lane, which is a lovely place. And I had a great following, which was fantastic. You know, and as I said, Hastings is a town that gets behind you, and everybody wanted me to do well, and so we used to fill a coach up, 2 coaches up, and I used to do the business, you know, but also I was a naughty boy again, because I used to like smoking weed. And I had friends that liked smoking weed, and everybody smoked weed. And I grew up with people smoking weed, my dad smoking weed, and everyone smoking weed. And in the old town was everyone, we all smoked weed. So
the whole of Hastings smoking weed.
We're smoking weed. And so, but even while I was smoking weed, I used to say, well, I'm going to at least do 10 days of training, you know. And so obviously I thought my talent was, I was only like young, and poor Dave Harris used to come down to the nightclubs and get me out at 2:00 in the morning. I said, Dave, I'm selling tickets. He said, but you're fighting today, you know, let's get home, let's get yourself some sleep. And I used to be out there punting my own tickets all over the place, and I used to love getting there because I used to get extra money, you know, for 10% I used to get on a coach load of people. That was quite a lot of money. But I won my first fight impressively. I won my second fight impressively, my third fight impressively, my fourth fight impressively. Then I had a draw or something like that with a guy called Richie Foster, who was the Commonwealth Games champion as an amateur, and fought Barry McGuigan as well. First fight, it was such an amazing fight over in the Oath Town Hall, and it was packed solid, and the noise was phenomenal, you know, and it was a brilliant fight. Featherweight division. That was 9 stone 6. I used to weigh in about 9'6", and my normal weight then was 10 stone 3, but I used to weigh in at 9'6", and it was like an 8-round fight, and it was like phenomenal, and they lifted both of our hands up as it was a draw, and that was back in 81 or something like that, 82, and they threw about 250 quid in the ring. I mean, that was a lot of money, all just showering in pound notes wrapped up in thing, and that fantastic. And then we fought again, another fight, a little while longer. I fought up in the air all, and I went out and done a bit of training and took him to the cleaners, basically. And that's what I used to be like. But I won I was unbeaten in 15 of my first professional fights, which weren't bad, you know. I fought some great fighters as a pro, and my first loss was against a guy called Barry McGuigan. I mean, he beat me over in Ireland. I don't know why we took that fight on, to be honest with you. Being me, being proud, being young, I said, I'll have the fight. Let's take the fight. The reason why I wanted to take the fight is because I'd beaten the man that beat Barry McGuigan, and that was Peter Eubanks. Peter Eubanks was a good fighter. His brother's Chris Eubanks. I don't know if you've heard of Chris. And his son's now, the Chris Senior, he's the world champion, you know, as you've seen. And so Peter weren't a bad fighter, and he beat Peter in the corn exchange over in Brighton, and I'd beaten Peter twice. So I thought this was as an amateur, but that doesn't matter. I'd beaten him twice, and I knew that I had the beating of Barry McGuigan, so we thought we'd take the fight on. Little did I know, I won't tell you all about the fight because that's in the book, because it's a fantastic story about that fight. But what I will tell you is I was having a beer in the bar the night before, with Alex Higgins and John Virgo, and I said, I've got to go to sleep tonight. I've got to fight Barry McGuigan tomorrow. You know, we've got an eliminator for the British title. And so off I went, and but they're very shrewd, you see. They're very shrewd, these managers and trainers, and I tell you what, that at 12, I was a bit of a playboy back then. And I had my mate Mark West, who's my sparring partner. He was in one of my corner men, and there was a bang on the door about 11 o'clock. You know, I'm fast asleep now and I want to fight in the morning, tomorrow next night. And I open the door, and there's 2 prostitutes standing there. And I went, nah, you know, I can't be doing this. I've got a fight tomorrow. So they went. So that didn't work. So that obviously, I believe that was their corner doing it. So that never worked. So the next thing you know, was a bang on the door about 2:00 in the morning that the hotel was going to blow up. So you've got to get out of the hotel. The hotel's going to blow up. The IRA have just rang us up, and you've got to get out. So there we were out on the streets at 3:00 in the morning, completely upset my my metabolism, so to speak. And then there was an interesting. I had Fanfare for the Common Man by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but there was a terrific fight, and it was a very, very dodgy decision, and why it was called. But you can read about that. Read it in the book because it is interesting. They did apologise afterwards. After about 4 weeks after, they apologised for what had happened. Give him his due. Barney Eastwood apologised. Eastwood Promotions, Barry's trainer and manager. And they said, would you like to fight Barry again? I said, of course I will. And this is on the Thursday, and I'm sitting there with a bottle of vodka and a silly spliff in my hand. What an idiot. You know, this is the sort of idiot I was. I mean, the town clown personality that I was back then at 21 years old, 22. And I said, of course I'll fight him again. When? They said, this coming Saturday at King's Hall over in Ireland. I said, nah, I can't do it. I'm about 11 stone, 10 and a half, almost 11 stone. So we didn't. I said I'll catch up with him another date. So that was that. So Barry went on to win the world title, which was very good, and I was pleased for him. And I met him a few years later, not so long ago, back down in Hastings, in the Freemasons Hall. There was a show on down there, and he come and we had a little chat and talked about old times, and I said, ring the bell now. We'll have it. We'll finish it off. But great lad, and he's doing well for himself, and he's got some good fighters, Frotch and Cole Frotch. I think he's got one of them, but he's doing okay, you know, and everybody loves him in Ireland. But after that fight, a lot of things started going on, you know. I mean, some extraordinary things, to be honest.
So what's the story on the drunken and disorderly boxer?
The drunken disorderly boxer?
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting story.
Hoping you'd say that.
Well, now my brother is a fantastic fella. I mean, he's older than me, and a lunatic. When he's had a few beers, you know, I mean, hence the shotgun through the window business. He got 4 years for that. But he come and knocked on my door one day, and he said, Paul, he said, I'm feeling a bit like I need to get away from all this alcohol stuff. Let's go out in the country. I said, all right. Let's just go and camp out for a couple of days and then see and get ourselves sorted out, live off the land, take the dogs with us, the ferrets like we had, you know, the thing, and the flops, as you call them, the nets. So the first night went fantastic. Yeah, we caught a lovely couple of rabbits, and we put the tent up, and we had a nice. Well, I think we didn't think we had a tent. I thought we just had sleeping bags, and it was a summer's day, and we just cooked this rabbit on the fire and everything else, and we had no drinking. And then the morning came. The dogs were lovely dogs. He had his collie, the Kit, and I had which one was mine? I think I called my one. Yeah, my one was Loose, a German short hair pointer, and Musket. A Musket was the other one. That was a cocker terrier, and they sniffed them rabbits out nicely. And so we had this lovely stew, and then we had a nice walk into Pet Level, and it was all going well, and we slept in this caravan for the night, and then we had another, you know, nice meal out underneath the stars and the shooting stars, all going lovely. Tony's getting his head together. I'm feeling all nicely, like, and then we got into Rye. Then we went into an off license.
Game over.
And Tony ordered a packet of roll-ups, and I just went, like, being a thief, grabbed hold of a bottle of brandy and stuck it in my coat. And then off we walked out the shop. And by the time we got to Iden, outside Rye, we'd finished off this bottle of brandy, and then we sort of drifted back into Rye. The first place we went into was the George Hotel up on the high street of Rye. After about half hour of my brothers jumping around, spinning about and doing somersaults, and the dogs barking, the ferrets running around, people screaming, and him putting his axe into the beautiful oak fireplace, saying this is going to make good firewood tonight, we eventually got thrown out of there. Then we went down to the next place, and that was in the High Street, and the same antics. Tony's bouncing around, doing all the rest of it, even before I got the two halves of directors. That was their favourite tipple. But by this time, it was mayhem. We got thrown out of there by the police. The police said, "That's it. That's your last chance." So they drove off. So we walked down to the next pub, which was the Pipe Makers Arms in Rye, and that's a bikers pub, all these heavy bikers and all that. And there we are, drinking away, jumping around, and Tony's flip-flopping. He had this thing about doing somersaults for some reason. He's flipping up and flying around the place like that, and all of a sudden the land was gone, and the police all turned up, and then they grabbed hold of me, and he's gone charging towards the police, saying, "You leave my little brother alone." So we've all wrestled to the floor, all handcuffed up and trussed up like pigs, and they threw us into the back of the police station, and we ended up sort of sleeping in the police, and then the dogs got locked up as well. The ferrets got locked up as well. So we're all locked up, see. And in the morning they said, "Right, you're both nicked for drunk and disorderly," and we had to call my dad, and he weren't very happy because he had to come and pick us up and bail the ferrets out. It must have I think it cost him a tenner to get the ferrets out of prison and the dogs. And so it was all over the papers, Paul, the drunken disorderly boxer. And it was like, there we were in front of the judge, and the judge is sitting there with his wig on in Rye High Street. And when he started reading the charges out and what the antics that we was getting up to, I mean, I couldn't stop myself. I just started laughing, and he, "Huggins, I'll give you something to laugh about in a minute." He said, "Now behave yourself." "Oh, yes, sure. And then, it gave us £250 fine each, and not even a charge for the dangerous weapon my brother had, because they let us off of that. And I said, "No, I'm not playing that." I didn't say it there and then, but I said, as we got out of the court, I said, "That's not my fault." I said, "You was doing somersaults all over the place, throwing yourself about, axing the tables." I said, "Me and you, I'm gonna appeal against it and say it's your fault." So I appealed. He said, "Well, you do what you like." I said, I am," and I went in front of the judge at Lewis Crown Court, and I pleaded with the judge, and then my barrister said, "Yes, he was under the influence of his brother." And I said, "Yes, I was, because I'm normally the good lad, and they said, "Okay, then we'll put your fine down to £50, and we'll give you £60 compensation for the train fare, and you had half a day off work." I said, "Thank you very much, Your Honour." And they jumped out and they said, "Oh, disgusting, you can't do that." And they didn't, so they cut the thing off. But that was what happened. I had my fine cut down, and that's what the drunken disorderly boxer was all about. Yeah.
So when was the beginning of the drug trade? At the beginning of the drug trading?
The drug trading.
Yeah.
Well, we used to go to Amsterdam quite a lot. And on a number of occasions, I'll talk about my last fight, because my last fight was against a guy called... Well, in fact, I'd just like to tell you about one of the other fights, actually, because it was a great fight, and his name was Vinto Limitola. And, by this time, Danny Mancini who would train Charlie Magri, and he was in the corner with Frank Bruno and that, and he rang me up and he said, "I've got a fight for you in Italy, topping the bill against Vinto Limitola." I said, "When?" He said, 10 days time. "Do you want it?" I said, "I'll have it." So that was that, all sorted out, club class, me and Peter Smith. I took him with me and my mate Keith Bossum, who's a bricklayer, and I said, "You can come, you can be in my corner as well." So off we went, and that night we was met by the mafia, you know, as we got off of club class in Rome, and we had a bit of a journey down to Salerno, and Vinto Limitola was the Italian and EBU, which is the prestigious European Boxing Union champion. And this was a warm-up fight for him to have a world title fight. I think it was with Stecker, I'm not sure. So, little did they know, though, but because as soon as I put that phone down with Danny Mancini, I was putting my tracksuit bottoms on. I was out there running around at 10 o'clock, sweating like a pig, getting in fitness, getting in that gym for 2 hours every day. I know, Danny, I only had 10 days, but I thought I'd make a go of it, you know, to see what we can do. And we got there, we ended up there, and that night when we eventually got down into Salerno with the old black coat mob, they picked us up, you know, in their crombies and all that, the mafia and whatever they were, and then we got there and had a nice big meal and all the rest of it, and then that next day there we were, we was in the old weighing-in room, and I weighed about 3 or 5 ounces over the top. Right, back upstairs and get yourself that weight off. You can't have that. You can't have that, Mr. Huggins. You cannot. No, this is for championship fight. Well, it wasn't a championship. It was a warm-up championship fight. And this is for Stecker. We have to have it at 9 stone 4 pound. And so that 3 times. Third time I got down there and I was about sort of, must have been about, I don't know, about 20, 30 grams or whatever, an ounce or so. And they said, one more time. I said, no, that's it. I said, I'm not doing it. Because we was topping the bill, you see. And I said, I'm not doing it. I'm going. I said, Peter, get your bags, please. I said, I'm going now. And I started walking off down to the bus stop. They said, Mr. Huggins, you come, we not give you forfeit. You fight too. Yeah, okay. I said, okay, thank you very much. And then we went and had a nice pizza and some gelato as ice cream and that night was all very good, and we got in the ring after all the announcements and the flowers and the different things, and Vinto being the champion of Europe and everything else, and the bell went, and so it was a tough old first round, you know. I mean, all of a sudden about 2 minutes 10 seconds into the first round, I threw some good shots. Vinto cracked me with a lovely right hand. It just about popped my left thigh. I slipped underneath, bashed him in the solar plexus, which was my favourite shot. You know, there's no muscle around there. You hit them there, they're done for. But he took it well. And then I saw his legs wobble a little bit, and I tore in for the kill like a lunatic. And it was combinations all over the place. Crowd were going berserk. There was police all over the place. Anyway, the referee gave him an 8 count. I tore into him again and finished him right off, and that was the end of it. I screamed at the crowd like a lunatic. I roared like that, and all the chairs and everything started coming through the ring and the rope. My trainer jumped on the top of me. He said, they're going to kill us. I said, no worries. He said, go over and put his arm up or something. Just go. And so I went, yeah, well, that's a good idea. So I went and lifted his arm up and gave him a clap like that. And so that was one. And the paper did say, Paul does the Italian job, and I was very pleased with that. It was an interesting fight. So that's the sort of fights that we like to get under your belt. But then I went back on the old Playboy game. But what else was you going to ask?
Last professional fight.
Oh yeah, that was against a guy called Jean-Marc Renard. Now he was a fantastic fighter, but I said to my trainer, it was Christmas Day. He said, my trainer, Bobby Paget, he was fantastic. He started that charity up called Angels with Dirty Faces. And so, lovely man. And he took me over there. We got on the thing. I took my mate with me, Keith Bossum. And because my other manager, he was fed up with it. I was being managed by Frank Warren by now, you know, and because Dave couldn't handle it, bless his heart. He was getting grey hairs and getting old and trying to sort me out, but I was just a lunatic, you know. My Bobby Paget called me mental. Personally, I was mental, and I was mental, to be honest. But that fight, after 6-8 rounds in that fight, the tail come in. Christmas Day, whatever year it was, 1987 or something like that. And that was I decided, I thought, I'm going to pack it in now. So I just got on a train with my mate, said, thank you very much, Bob, for all that you've done for me on a Christmas Day. I said, most people would have been out there looking after and in with their parents and their families, but you come and watch me fight, and I thank you so much for that. And so that was the end of it, and I went off to Amsterdam, and that's where we started making plans.
How did you make your connections out there?
Because when it was, you know, I started getting involved with buying a little bit of, and then asking, where does this all sort of take place? And I come back and got in touch with a friend of mine, and we started shipping stuff across the water, and I was making more money at that than I was boxing. So I thought, well, you know, there's no point in going back to boxing anymore. But unfortunately, after a while, these things, I had a henchman as well, and I won't mention any names, but one of them hung himself, and the other one that was working with me sat in his bathroom and put a bullet through his head. Wow. And this is what we was dealing with. You know, I was going around with a sword, which was like, if somebody upset me, I'll chase somebody down the road with it. I was swishing it around like nobody's business. It was like, because they owed me money, and this is the sort of thing she was going through. You was going from even people would rip you off willy nilly. You know, I was doing all these kilos of gear all over the place, and I was bringing all this dough in every week, and I was going off the head. I was literally snorting cocaine like there was no tomorrow every day. I ended up like looking out the curtain thinking, what am I doing? And I'm not going out there and all that sort of thing. And you get totally paranoid and off your head. There was excesses I was dishing them out left, right and centre. And I was generally going, but I was like what Bob said, I was mental. But I didn't think I was mental, but I realised I was actually mental.
So where were you living at this time?
I bought myself a place in Pembroke Road, just where I was brought up in Hastings, and so we used to do that. But a funny story was during this time, I mean, we went down to the nightclub one night, me and my associates, and we all had a few beers, and I drove the car home. I was relatively sober. And I decided that on the way home, that this is how mental I was. On the way home, in this, you know, a lovely car that I had, of just whatever it was, but laughing our heads off, driving around town like a lunatic, and then going. And on the way home, I said, I was going to drop them all off. I went zoom like that, went into the woods, into where I live, St Helens Woods, and started doing dirt track driving, ended up in a great big ditch, and then I got out of the car and said to the lads, end of the evening, lads, I'm going home, I'll see you later. And they went, and my dog who's German pointer, Lucy, was with me, and all of a sudden I thought, oh, when they've gone, this is about 5 minutes later, then I thought, after about 200 or 300 yards in the pitch black raining, I thought, I've left my golf clubs in the car. So I went back to get my golf clubs, and there's this bloody torchlight coming down the old pathway where we'd driven in through the woods, and this big Alsatian come pounding down, and my dog and this Alsatian were rolling about on the floor, and these police officers are in pursuit of me, and I'm running with my golf clubs on the back of me thing through all this mud, and it's pitch black, and it was like moonlight, and I was just because I knew those woods, you know, because I've been through them so many times, I knew where I was going, this dog was right beside us, but it was bounding around, rolling about with my dog on the floor with its legs up in the air. and I'm going, Lucy, come on, quick. I'm running through. And I thought, I'm going to go in my mum's house. And she lived in the flats. And it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and this door was open. I run in this door, and the dogs were still playing outside. And I started taking my clothes off, and Margaret said, "What are you doing?" I said, "The police are after us. I'll tell you about it in the morning." And I took all my clothes off. I just run upstairs, and I opened the door, and I went inside, and I locked the door, shut the door, and I put the kettle on, I put a pair of pyjamas on, washed my hands like that, got myself all nice and done up like that. And about 5 minutes later, it was bang, 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 bang on the door. And I thought, Right. Hello, officer. What can I do for you? Look at you. And he had his hat all over there like that, and he was covered in mud. And my dog was sitting out there like that, and his Alsatian was like that, and they was like, and I said, "What's going on here then?" He said, "Where's your car?" I said, "Well, it's down in the car park, officer." I said, I'd look over the balcony. I said, "Would you like a cup of tea?" He said, "No." I said, "Lucy, where have you been all night?" I said, "Come on, come in." He said, "Huggins," he said, "I'm going to get you, Huggins, I tell you." That's how he walked off. But it was a bit like I was a bit sort of done quite well there, I thought, and it was quite funny, to be honest. But that was the story in the woods with the dog. But where did we get to? That was just. I thought I had to put that story.
Amsterdam, smuggling operations with the cartel.
Yeah, we'd done a bit. I started doing that. It's nothing I can really go into with you, but it was a good arrangement. We had a good arrangement. It was coming over in tin cans. With all the drinks emptied out, and they was being lovely soldered back together again, and so it was going well, and we got away with it, and for a long time, and unfortunately something very sad happened, which you'll find in that book. A friend of mine again.
What happened?
He hung himself.
And that led to the authorities getting involved in it. And
that led to just I just thought, I can't, it was, as what with my mate Jim putting a bullet through his head as well, and then I just sort of thought, well, let's do something. I'm going to continue doing this because we're earning good money, but look, there's people dying around me all the time. My other mate, Jim, Alex, he hung himself in his kitchen, and he was like doing all the speed and all the rest of it, and that I thought, there's another one gone, and but I didn't care less, to be honest with you. Half the time, I just thought, oh well, another one drops. It seems like the last one standing, and it was just like, it was really ruthless. I mean, we had to go around people's houses sometime, attacking them, and because they owed us money, and I was like, I'll think nothing of it in you over the head with something hard, like a hammer. Do you know what I mean? And it was awful, and I didn't care though at that time. Although I was, I had a heart, but I didn't care because it was ruthless. And it was, you're in this ruthless world where everybody's just ruthless, and you just didn't care, and you just thought, just one day came and another one went, and you lived in a twilight zone of pretend world or whatever it was, but. Yeah, things started getting worse, And then one day, have we got any more sort of, you want to ask me anything else?
Yeah, I'm wondering when the authorities started to clock onto you.
Well, they was always clocked onto me, but they couldn't catch me.
How do you know they were clocking onto you?
Because they were. because it's a small town, and I should imagine that they did, but they couldn't. There was waiting for their time.
Gathering information.
They was just gathering in the information and stuff, you know. And so when it all finally come to a head, to be honest with you, I don't know if I've actually left anything out, but probably have. But I'll tell you about the why I got locked up. I could.
Is that after the escape to Thailand or before the escape?
Let's talk about the Thailand, shall we?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the Thailand's an interesting story. I like the Thailand. And we went over there, and well, I did actually. I went over there on my own to start with, and I went over there, and I thought I booked up a 3 month. I thought I'm having a bit of problems with my family life. You know, I had three kids with Sally, and I didn't. It weren't a very good relationship, and I was also a horrible beast of a man when I was pissed right out of my head, and it was. I was ugly and evil, but when I was sober, you couldn't fault me. And that evil of drink and drugs mixed in, it makes you do things that you just dread to think about. But anyway, I decided, I thought, I've got to get out of this country, and I'm going to go to Thailand. And I've seen pictures on the TV about it, and it seems like a good place to go. And all these brothels and everything else, and what everybody else walking about doing what they do. And I thought, well, let's go over there. So I went and got a ticket. Flew on this plane over to Thailand, and there I am. I got off the plane, and this big fat fella called Samoy, he said, "Taxi, sir." I said, "Yeah." Fantastic. Picked up my bags. Oh, this is nice. Right. Took me to a nice hotel. Obviously, they're all getting their little bunces and things like that, because that's what they do. I suppose work together there. And it was a nice hotel. And we went in there, and he said, "Would you like me to come back tomorrow, and so I can make you and take you around and show you some sights?" He said, he told me his name. I said, "Yeah, that'd be fantastic." I said, "You know, it's my first time into a place like this, exotic like this." And so I got all excited, and I got into this room, and then I got to run out, and I said cheerio to the people behind the jump and thing, and I got a taxi, a tuk-tuk, and they took me in, and took about, must have been about a mile or so into the middle of Bangkok. And there I am in Bangkok, having a whale of a time, drinking, smoking with the girls and all the rest of it. And after a while, I'm as drunk as a sack and half off my head. And I thought to myself, right, I'm going to go home. And I said, I'm going home. That's it, let's go home and we'll meet Samoy in the morning, and we'll start this holiday sensibly. And then I realised I didn't know what the hotel name was.
Oh!
I realised I didn't know where the heck it was. I realised I never took a car with me, and in my excitement. And I thought, oh no, I don't know where I am. I've never been never in my life. I've got no idea whatsoever what that hotel was, where it was, what street it was in, and it was like about 20 minutes tuk-tuk drive away. And then I stopped this tuk-tuk driver. I said, "I need to find my hotel." He said, come on board, he said. "Come on board, I will take you home." I said, "Well, how do you know where my home is?" He said, "Well, you just get on board and we'll find it for you." And anyway, after about 10 minutes, we stopped at another bar. I said, "I don't want to go to a bar. I want to go home to a hotel where I can find my passport, my luggage and everything else. I said, I'm stuck here and I'll have to go to the embassy." "Ah, no, you worry. We will find your hotel." And off we went. Then he stopped at a brothel. I said, "I don't want to go to a brothel. I want to go to a hotel. I want to find my..." And this went on for about half an hour. And then I said, "If you don't take me home, I'm going to..." So we was driving from about all night all night, everywhere. We was driving. And it got to about 4 o'clock in the morning. And I went, there it is! And it was my hotel. Wow, what a happy man I was that day. I gave him a tip, and it was like something else. I think it must have been about a year's wages. And he was, thank you very much, sir. And I started a really good holiday in Thailand. But before long, when Samoy ended up taking me to his parents in the middle of a place called Ratchanburi, and he left me there, and I stayed there, and I was being treated like a king and everything else. I was paying them and all that, but I liked it. I loved it. It was serene, and then all of a sudden I started getting a bit. I want to go back to town. After about a month in this place, I was. They bought this. This is how good they were. They bought this cow out. They said, we are going to eat this cow. I said, oh, lovely. They said, we're going to especially kill it for you, as you are our guest. I said, that's lovely, because we was we was living in these houses on stilts and stuff like that. And there was all the tools and all the bunk bed and all the shamrock, whatever they're called underneath. Those things you sit on, what are those? Hammocks. And I was treated like a really nice guest. And they said, I'll show you what we do for this, and we're going to make it all very prepared for you. I said, oh, lovely. And then he got his slammer jammer from under the house, like out of the tall bit, and they went, donk, hit this thing on top of the head, like that. And then they went with this great big knife, and I went, oh. And I said, you can't do that. They said, oh, what do you mean, sir? I said, let me have that sledgehammer. So I said, you have to put it out of his misery. So I smashed this thing over there with this sledgehammer about 3 times. If you had saw it, you would have thought I was some madman out of an insane person that had been out of a lunatic asylum. But I was just thinking of this poor creature, that it was like suffering. But obviously they went like that, and all this blood came out, and we ate it. And it was delicious, and all, they didn't waste anything, everything that they took off of it, they made into something like that. Then I got fed up, and I said to Samuel, so I want to go back to town. So I went back to town. I ended up in the gang with all the gangsters, the Thai squad, the Thai whatever they are. They're called triads, aren't they? And so I ended up playing this snooker in this snooker, all these triads, and it was very clever, this triad, and I was knocking these balls in and that, because I thought I was pretty good at it, and he was letting me get right up to the very end, and then he was pop 50, 200 bar, 400 bar, 500. I said, I've had enough of this after about losing about 50 quid, and that was quite a few quid there. I said, I've had enough of this, and I had a look around, and I said, see all these boxes around here? Yes, sir, what you want with boxer? I say, you pick me any boxer and we go fight. And I have money from fighting. He says, you come with me, sir, you come with me. Your big gold teeth, like glitter lips, I called him. He says, you come with me. And we went into this back room, and there we were, all these fighters climbing up ropes like willy-nilly, and like fit as fiddles. And I thought, flipping it, and I'd just been on my last bottle of Magog, whatever they called it, and smoked a couple of the old funny ones. And he said, you take your pick, sir, with his big gleaming teeth. I said, all right then. I said, I'll finding hard to choice. They was all as fit as fiddles, all like, proper fighters. And I said, I'll have him. He looked a bit sort of lively, about 18, 19, 20, and I thought I'll have the youngest one. So off we went, round to the old gym, and we put the gloves on. He said, what you want, Raw? What you want? I said, Raw, we fight to death. He said, oh, you fight to death, and gling with his glinkly gold. I said, yeah, we fight to death. He said, good. He said, you put gloves on and we fight to death. We have bell over here. We ding and you fight, okay? I said, yeah, okay. So off we went, and we was fighting. And we was in there smashing hell out of each other. And I thought, Gordon Bennett, this boy, it ain't too bad, and I'm sort of like slipping and doing the best I can. after about 3 rounds, the old Magog started to get hold of me in there. So I was sort of sucking it all in. And I said, hang on a minute. I said, 3rd round light come. So I'm just going to have a look in the mirror. And I looked and I thought, oh, black eye, split nose, lip bleeding. I thought, I've got to fight a bit more now. I've got to get in there. You know, this is for about 200 or 300 quid, I think it was, like loads of money. Anyway, we started fighting again, and I slipped in. I shot this lovely right hand straight up in his ribs, and I could hear the like that. I thought, nice one, like bam, bam, bam. Down he went, and then they started counting. He got up. I believe he got up. I'm not sure if he got up, but I know I smacked him and knocked him, smashed him down again. Bang! They started counting. I went up 10, 11, 12, 13. I got to 30. I said, I thought we was fighting. I mean, you know, what's going on? He said, you say fight to death. Oh, glitter lips. And then I smashed him again, and that was it. And he handed me this big wad of money. And I went, thank you. I said, thank goodness for that to myself, like, you know. And he said, we see you tomorrow, same time. I said, you won't be seeing me tomorrow, same time. I said, thank you very much. And that, and I left them there. Glitter lips weren't so glittery then. And that was fantastic. And 4 years later, I took my mate over there, Johnny Wilder, who had a terrible accident. But that's in the book as well. And we went back into that gym again, and they say, Mad for Lang. They called me the Mad for Lang, because that means mad white man, you know. I said, man, I love, hey, come over to his mate, Mad for Lang. I said, how you doing? And I said, see, John? I said, I told you they knew me. And so, but he won the snooker that night, so we didn't have to go and fight no more. Thank goodness for that. But it was a lovely little story. And I got back home, and I had a lot of respect for those people up in that village. They looked after me really well. And I come back home, and off we went again, like, you know, after 3 months.
And that's when your friends died when you got back, and you had some strange encounters.
Yeah. It was. I had quite a few strange encounters, to be honest with you. I don't know what it was. You know, I kept thinking to myself that why am I still alive sometimes, you know, and look at all the near misses I've had and stuff, and one particular event I was in the van, and I was really going through a really deep depressive time. And I was driving this van, and there's 3 of us in the back, and my mate was just going off to get some smoke, and we're sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh, where's life going to be going off? Well, what's the point of all this and all that? And all of a sudden, there was this big banging on the side of the van, and I said, who's that banging? They said, ain't me. So all right, bang, 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 it went 3 times. So bang, 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 it went 3 times again. And I turned around, I said, hang on. I said, I got out of the van, I had a look under the van, nothing there. I said, you sit in the middle of the van. Well, I said, well, let's do this properly. You sit there and let's call this thing, whatever it is, bang, bang 3 times again. I said, all right, and bang 3 times again then. Bang, bang, bang. There was this big bang on the side of the van. They went, what was that? I said, I don't know. I said, but I'll tell you what, there's something spiritual about this. And I leapt out of the van, I ran over to the beach, and I started splashing myself with all this water and everything. And I thought, like, something had entered me, you know, it felt like it was so strange. You know, all of this depression all of a sudden just dissolved. And I was like, as a kite, I was running around telling everybody that I'd just been approached, I'd just been filled with this lovely spirit. It's fantastic. I was talking about all these different things in the pub. They said, what you had, Paul? I said, I've had a spirit. I don't know what it is, but it's great. And after 3 days, the spirit left me again.
Oh no.
And and I went, oh, where's it gone? So I went to, I tried to search for it, you see, which is, but I mean, that's why I was called mental. But I went into this spiritualist church, which is the last place that I should have gone to, and I went into this spiritualist, and this big old like lurch bloke was standing up on the door, and he said, but this was like, I looked on the thing and it said, come in on Tuesday or Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. So I was there at this 8 o'clock, and this lurch bloke looked like Count Dracula or something, and he went, hello, what can I do for you? I said, I've come along to find, I've still had a spirit. I said, this is a spiritualist church. He said, yes. He said, you had a spirit, did you? I said, yes, I did actually. I don't know where it's gone. I said, it's run away, or it's left me, or something. And he said, you've come for the right place for that. Come inside. So there I was. And I'm sitting in this funny thing, and all these candles are all alight and all that sort of thing. And I thought, after about 15 minutes, I thought, nah, this ain't where my spirit come from. They was all calling people from the dead and all that stuff. And I thought, what's all that going on? And this. So I walked out, and I left my pamphlet on the thing. He said, is everything okay for you, sir? I said, no, that's not my spirit. I said it was something different from that. See you. I said, I won't be coming back. Bye. And that was something it was just, I'm sure that was the Lord telling me that he was around, but you ain't ready yet, sort of thing. So after a while, you know, the same old skullduggery and people getting involved in this, that and the other. And, you know, I mean, I had BMWs and all the rest of it, and I was earning a good few quid, and life was empty. It was empty, and I didn't have any relational value with anybody, and I felt like, you know, I felt lost, and the only way I could find all that was with being involved with drink and drugs, and so. And then in the end, I was just one day. Well, another little funny story, which ain't funny actually, but I don't know if I told you, but I fought this on the concrete. Oh, did I tell you about the boxing fight? No, I couldn't have done. Anyway, there was this. It was carnival day, and we set a ring up out of scaffold poles, and I was taking on all comers. And it was fantastic, and I had a really good day there. And you know, I knocked a few people over because they tried to beat me up, and fair people, because the fair comes away. One of them tried to beat me up, so I knocked him over as well, but picked him up. There's some nice pictures in the thing, and that was an interesting story. But in the end, I ended up found myself on the balcony of the public house called the Nelson, and they was having a charity day of cutting people's hair, and I said, "Oh, I'll do it, you know, for a bit of charity." And someone started sniffing me ear, and then this big fella, 6 or so foot, walked up the stairs, and he went, "Yeah, talk with a Liverpool accent. Yeah, you're some kind of a or something, are you?" And I thought, "Oh dear. What's going on here again?" You know, I mean, I'm only having an haircut, mate. You know, it's for charity. Yes, you're a. And I thought he was.
I love the accent.
I thought he was like, he must be trying to pick me out, because I was obviously well known around town for doing this, that, and the other. So we ended up like having this row. But before I get to that, I'll just tell you a quick story about this big fella called Frank, lovely man. He come into the pub, and he lived in Hastings for a little while. He was a ground worker, and he said, and in one of my down times, he said, "Does anyone want to do some work? We're going up to Luton Airport. We've got a load of concrete in and tarmacking to do." I said, "I'll come. You know, get me out of this and rut I'm in." And we got up there, and everything was all tickety-boo, and this is this great big dumper, massive one it was, you know, it must have been about 20 ton, and I thought, well, I'll get in that, and I'll just drive it around and go and get some tarmac, so bring it back. And so I got in this dumper and I'm driving it around, and then I decided, this is all right, I'm driving it around on this great big place with all these like cabins and everything else, and great big coal things and tarmac things where it filled up the thing, and I just got carried away, and all of a sudden I hit this hump on the road like a policeman, and it bounced all the way over the road, and it went straight into this telephone box. Money went all over the place, straight into the cabin where all these people were sitting down doing their writing and stuff. So that was the end of my tarmacking career. But Frank, he was a big man, Frank, and he just grabbed hold of me and threw me around like a rag doll and threw me on the floor. So my normal thing was for these big guys was just to walk up to them and put my hand on their right hand shoulder and say, what was all that about then? In a nice calm voice, and then I'll just go. Before you know it, they was knocked out on the floor. So he was laying on the floor, knocked out, this 20-odd stone man. And I sort of started getting worried because I thought he was going to die. So I started giving him the kiss of life, see? And he's not the sort of bloke that they would kiss a man, you know what I mean? I mean, he's a big fella, and his missus is there, and she's crying and screaming. But he come to, and I never saw him again after that, but bless his heart. And this is what happened with the same man that walked up them stairs. Now, he was giving it all the thing in the world, and I don't know what he was trying to do. He was picking me out left, right and centre, and I was getting the ump, like, so I the same old thing. I walked in, and he was big. He must have been 6'4", 6'6", and I put my hand on his shoulder like that. I said, mate, I don't want no problems. And then it was like, because that, like, I could throw, at my speed as a fighter, I could throw 49 punches in 10 seconds. Wow. That's lots. And so I've knocked him over, a good shot, because it was right on his jaw, and he actually was still awake, and I was quite worried at this point because he's a big fella. So he went after it was all split up, and we never continued, but they waited, you see. They waited, and I know they waited because I was told by a guy called Jeff, who was also one of their friends, and he's dead now, Jeff, but he said, this is what he said. He said, we was waiting in the van outside when you got drunk, and everybody had left the pub. We was waiting for you. Both of us had, my mates had club hammers waiting. Because what they did, they burst through the doors when no one was there and I was lying there still drinking out of my rotten skull. And I fought for my life. He bit my nose off. So they never got me in the back. So after about 15 minutes of this biting my nose off, and one of them trapping me a leg in the door, and I'm fighting, and nobody's there, just these blokes. And so obviously the landlords rang up the old bill, so they couldn't get me into the back of the van. Otherwise, I would not have been here telling you the story. Anyway, I got he spat it out, this bloke. Oh. My nose on the thing there, and the police put it out when they arrived. They was gone. Put this thing into my little philemria or whatever they call it, and I got taken to hospital.
I'm just looking at James's face over there,
and it's it was quite painful. And so after about 3 weeks of it getting back together again, after coming out of East Grinstead, I decided, and I've inquired about this chap, and I found out that he used to come down now and again, and I think he was involved with gear, and so I was furious, obviously. Mm-hmm. So I went and purchased which was, I won't tell you his name, but he's very close to me, and so I got this shotgun and sawed it off. And thought, right, that's. I heard that he used to drink in a pub along the St Leonard's Way, and I went over and put a balaclava over my head, loaded this shotgun up with the old cartridges, and sat in the dark, waiting for him. You see, because I was going to just shoot him. No two ways about it. I wouldn't bat an eyelid, and I would have had great pleasure in that. But fortunately for both of us, he never showed up, and so. This is what happened next. that was all sorted. But there was a murder, see? Somebody got murdered, and one of my people, apparently, who used to get, as in the chain, they used to deal with, and he'd done a bit of whatever, and he got murdered because he owed some money. And I was coming out one night, and have we got to that bit in the book yet?
Brushes with death, or are we?
Well, we downward spiral, continuous brushes with death.
Continuous brush. Well, that was a bit of a brush with death.
Definitely.
That was.
Yeah.
That was a very brushed death. I mean, if it could have had a good part, everything would have gone nicely if they had been strong enough. But I was amazing. That was just some supernatural power. So anyway, there's this kid. He got arrested. Got murdered. And,
how did he get murdered? How was he murdered?
He was murdered. I think I'm sure the paper said he was slashed with, stabbed to death with a knife. In the park, which is a very, very dark place. And anyway, I'm standing in the beer engine pub this night. Like, this is where, it's our base. You know what I mean? And I was doing a business at the time called Missionary, just called Antiquabrack, and I had one called the Millennium Tours, because I had to show that I was doing something to where all these BMWs kept coming from and stuff. And so I was doing my best to make things look like I was actively getting involved with real things. And I did do those real things as well, you know, I was doing them. And so, anyway, the police walked in, these two plainclothes officers, and I'm standing at the bar, and one stood either side of me, and they went, hello, Paul. I said, oh, you? They said, I said, oh, you're the police. I ain't seen you for years. I went, hello, mate, whatever his name was. He said, we want a word with you. I said, oh, sure, where? He said, we want to take you out to the police station. He said, we've got to talk to you about Bobby Jones. I said, oh. I said, okay, I don't know Bobby Jones though. I said, I know, I've heard the name. I said, saw his thing in the paper a couple of weeks ago. He said, yeah, we got to talk to you. I said, all right. I said, I'm just going to have a pint of beer. Would you? He said, we'll get that. And I just thought, because we had grow rooms in town as well. I was in charge of all these, where we was growing all sorts of stuff. And so I still have like my bag of weed every week. And so I love weed, you know. And I don't know more though, obviously. And so anyway, I thought, I better take. I said, do you mind, officer? I said, I keep going to the toilet. I said, I'll just go out to the toilet and I'll be back in a minute. So my bladder's killing me. I said, and off I went, and I got this bag of weed out of my pocket, and I went like that, and into the cistern, into a dry pit, walked back again. And we said, we're ready then? I said, yeah, let's go then. And we got in the back of the police car outside. And we're driving up the road, and he said, you smoke weed, Paul? I said, of course. Oh, I said, well, of course I do. I said, I go to Amsterdam quite a lot. We all smoke weed over there. He said, oh, yes. I said, yeah, you're right. It does smell a bit. I think perhaps someone's rubbed against me in the pub or something. Anyway, I realised that I put a bag of jelly babies, which was in the toilet cistern, and not the bag of weed. So I've still got the bag of weed in my pocket. And we've got into the police station, and I said, oh, my bladder's playing me up again, officer. I said, I'll just pop into the toilet. He said, okay, I'll wait outside here for you. I said, okay. I went in there, and I put them down with tracksuit bottoms like that, this bag of weed, and I walked out, and walking along, and then all of a sudden it trickled down like that. And it trickled out and fell on the floor. He said, so you do smoke weed, Paul? He said, well, pick that up and put it in your pocket, because this is a murder inquiry. So, fortunately, I had my bag, and I still had my bag of weed, but they took me home, down to the pub. I said, drop me down the pub. I said, this will make a fantastic story tonight. I said, thank you very much, officer. So they asked me about where I was and all this on the night of the murder and bits and pieces, and I gave them the best answers I could because I didn't know where I was most of the time, to be honest with you. I was always out of my silly little town clown skull. And so there you go. So after 2 weeks then, now I found myself in my friend's house in Hollington after this murder inquiry investigation thing. So I found myself in his house, my old mate up in Hollington, and we're having a nice evening. I loved the music. He had some fantastic sounds, all the old 70s and Fleetwood Mac and Pink Floyd and all those good ones. And we used to sit and his missus and all that, and all sit and have a smoke and listen and just enjoy as a bottle of wine and enjoy the company, as you're going through the night. Anyway, I fell asleep, and then it must have been about 5 o'clock in the morning. It was just getting light. He was in bed by now, and I'd fallen asleep. And all of a sudden, the doors come crashing through. Armed officers. They said, "Freeze!" And I went, or something like that. "Put your hands behind your back," or what? "Get on the floor." I said, "What's happening?" They said, "We're arresting you on suspicion of murder." And so I got arrested for this murder stuff, and then they locked me up in a police station, and I had this horrible barrister that came. I got a good mind to mention his name. What a sneaky git, He was like this, right, sitting in from the one side of the cell with the thingy bob down, and he was going like that, and I'm sitting in the cell. It didn't open the door to come in and sit there. He said, "Paul, we're going to get you off of this." This is his exact words. "We're going to get you off of this. Let's make up a place where you was that night so we can put it down on the book." This is this barrister, I'd never had, but I knew of him. And I said, "Hang on a minute, what do you mean, let's get me off of this?" I said, "Well, I ain't even done anything." He said, "Come on, let's just get it out. We'll get it all sorted out, and I'll come in and take the statement, and we'll make it." I went, and I looked at and there's 2 police officers, one either side of the police cell. What a git, eh?
Yeah.
And I said, "Get me another solicitor." I said, "You filthy, 2 or 3 foul language." And so they went up to my house and they searched the house, and because I never shot this geezer up because he never turned up. So I thought, well, maybe there'd be another occasion. So they searched through the house and stuff, and I had a very nice hiding place, but they managed to find this shotgun, Sawn-Off, loaded, sitting there. Gotcha. So that's the start of the gotcha bit. And then they're all sitting there, wrapping their hands together. At last, we're going to get him off the streets for 4 to 7 years. And so that was the start of that. So I could take you to the court case if you want.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Anyway, so I'm thinking, and then I ended up with Joe Alden, and he's not a bad bloke, he's a local fella, and he's a Christian, and he's he was my solicitor, my lawyer for that day. And he said, "You'll probably get between 4 and 7. He said, "This judge don't like prison guns whatsoever." He said, "Although you haven't been caught with it like menacingly, Sawn-Off shotgun with bullets in it looks like it's going to be used for something at least." So he said, "You expect between 4 and 7. So that day I decided, I'm going to make my way over to Lewis Crown Court. And I'll put me silk suits on, what I got from Thailand, and a lovely shirt and tie, a sort of khaki shirt type of thing. And I had a nice pair of brogues on, and I looked a Hunter gold watch with a nice chain in it, because I like antiques. So I used to run a business called Antica Break, but that's another story. And I thought, well, if I'm going to go to prison, I just as well go looking pretty good, And I stuck my glasses on, my Ray-Bans, and off I went. And there we are in the courtroom and all the old bills, and I'm sitting there, Huggins, court number, whatever it was. And I went, sat down, court arise, off we went, and there he is, Mr. Brown, with his big wig on and his little glasses like that, just looking over the top of him. And like that, through all of my past crimes, pages of them. And he said, Huggins, and I'm in downstairs when I'm in the oldest houses. Send him down Brown, gave me 25 years. Send him down Brown, gave me 15. Send him down Brown, gave me 10 years. Nothing under 10 years. I'm thinking, oh no. Anyway, I got on my knees in the cell, and I was just before I went up to see him, I started praying to a God that I didn't know. And I said, God, Lord, I don't know who you are, God, whoever, Jesus, whatever it is, Lord. All these things that have been happening to me lately, it's just extraordinary. You know, I don't even know why I'm still alive, and all the stuff that's going on in my life. But now I'm here, and I don't really think I could do 7 years. I said, please don't let me have 7 years. You know, I'm not a bad bloke. I don't mind carrying little old ladies' bags when they go in the shopping centre and stuff. And I'm a good bloke, really. And I was almost like, you know, dripping tears. And I said, please, Lord, I'll get to know you more if you just do something about this sentence. 7 years. I don't want that. 7 years. Look at all these things all over the place. Look. Anyway, Huggins, there I was in the court thing. And he said, stand up, Huggins. And I looked behind me, and there's all the police officers with all these little grins on their faces, thinking, that's it, gotcha. You know. And he said, I don't know what it is, Huggins. I don't know what it is, but something's telling me about you. Something's telling me about you. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 9 months. God bless you, Your Honour. Like that. And I looked around, and the old boy like, I thought, nice one. Anyway, I got in there, and then they said, what you got? What you get? I said, firearms, you know, loaded sawn-off shotgun. And they said, what did you get? I said, 9 months. They said, you grass. I said, no, I'm not. I said, no, I'm not. I said, I started praying to somebody called Jesus. And I said, this is why I got this sentence. I believe that this was Jesus that done it. I said, no one else could have done it. I said, and I'm certainly not a grass mate, so you can lose to get rid of that idea. Yeah, they thought I couldn't believe it. Even the people in prison couldn't believe that I got this 9-month prison sentence. So this is where things started changing for me, and that was in probably 1997. And do you want me to go on from there?
Yes, please.
I mean, you know, there I am.
Which prison?
Lewis Prison. It's a bit of a dive, you know. I mean, prisons are prisons. I've all got these great big castle things where you have to go through and get stripped off and do this bath wash and all this stuff and get your hair cut and all the rest of it. And they give you these clothes and prison uniforms and trousers, and everybody looks the same. You all eat the same food, and you're all like just like a number now, like Huggins 44, whatever it was, and that's it. You're a number in jail, aren't you? I mean, and you ain't going nowhere, you know. And you're sitting in this prison cell, and you're looking at these flies flying around, like, you know, and you're trying to swat them, but they do eventually escape, and you think, oh, if only I was a fly. I mean, you really want to be a fly. That's how bad it is. And it's awful in the blooming thing. And you find yourself counting the blooming brick things and the numbers on the wall, what people have done before you, and you just sort of like you did, like pick up bits of paper and just anything. Even if you ain't got a book, you just find things to read or do or whatever. And so I'm sitting there, and fortunately, after about 4 weeks, I got this this 9 months, and this chaplain, he gave me this Bible, and they sent me off to Camp Hill, and I took my Bible. So I've taken my Bible with me. I'm not. This is mine. You know, look at it, nice old gospel, shiny cover, and all that. I'll keep that. Have a read of that, and that. You know, I ain't got nothing else to read, so there I am. Went to Camp Hill. "What are you in for?" I said, "Oh, firearms." "What are you getting?" "I'm you grass." And I said, "I'm not a grass." I said, "Don't start that." I said, "I was praying to G." I had to tell this story on a number of occasions because everybody thought I was a grass because I got such a little sentence. And I said, "But I'll tell you what, I'm going to start reading this Bible, and I actually think you should as well because there's something in this." And then then I got sent back. Then from Camp Hill went off to blooming Wandsworth, and then I went back to, where else did I go? Back to Lewis, and then I went into Wormwood Scrubs, and I said, I wrote a letter out. I said, "I'm on tour, prison tour, everywhere." And I read it, like in that 9 months I was reading books after books and that stuff, but I kept reading my Bible. So there I am sitting in Wormwood Scrubs, and I'm reading through the book of John. And in the book of John, it's a fantastic book. And one of Jesus' very disciples, and one of the ones that he loved all of his disciples, and an eyewitness to his 500 people were actually eyewitnesses to Jesus' death and resurrection. And anyway, I'm looking through this book of John, and it says, "To enter the kingdom of heaven, you must be born again. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me." And I'm looking through it, and I said, "Okay, Lynn, I don't know what it is, Lord, but I've had all these near-death experiences. I shouldn't be here on the planet, and I've had like miraculous. And I mean, I'll just tell you one more quick miraculous story. Another one, there's quite a few in there. Anyway, this guy above where I lived, and he I was doing, he's one of my boys, one of many of them. Who used to, because he lived so close, I used to deal with him personally, so he could, do whatever he did with all of his. He just dealt canvas. And one day he was owed me money. Like everybody owes you money in that game. So I went up there and I'm banging on his door, pissed right out my head, and got the ump because he owed me about 1,000 or 1,200 quid. And I said, "I've got to have this money. I've got to have this money, and you're taking the piss basically." Anyway, he tried to get us, and I started forcing my way into the house half drunk, and he got me out eventually, and because he was an handy kiddie himself, he'd been stabbings and all the rest of it he'd been in jail for, but I mean, I weren't having none of it. So on the way down the house, downstairs, I thought, well, I'll get you in the morning, because I own this flat. It's only a flat, and in the windows, the pane glass windows on the way down the steps, I was so annoyed. I threw this great big right-hander at the window and just done a bowler, bowled it over, just sort of pretending that's you. And do you know what happened? I can show you the scar, but this is what happened. Look, there is a scar.
Wow.
That scar,
very deep,
is deep. And that scar actually cuts straight through my main artery. There's only 2 arteries that go through you, pumping near and there, and this is a miracle in itself, because all of a sudden this blood's pumping up in the air. I checked it out after many weeks after. It takes 6 minutes to bleed out, and I'm now 15-20 minutes away from the hospital. At least, and it's middle of the night and nobody's got any car or anything like that, and I'm gone off the trolley and stuff, and where I've been up and down the stairs and having this fight, like my blood is pumping around me, and this blood's coming up at least about 3 inches like that as it's going, and you're thinking, well, that's it. And I put my hand over my thing and I walked out down the road. I didn't have a mobile phone or anything on me. And so I got down to this, banging on this one first of all, started banging on this house in Mount Pleasant Road, and I saw the curtains go back and they went straight back like that. Like, obviously, it's that nutter. And then I went down to the what was it ever it was called? Anyway, I not banged on the Shah. I banged on this door, and the dog started barking. It was closing time in them days, at 12 o'clock on the weekends or whatever it was, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning or something. And Daphne and Robin, they came and they said, "What's happened to you?" And this was about 5 minutes now, as you see, but I'm going like that. So I've got one vein going through my arm, and the other one's severed in half, and the other one's got a nick in it where I whacked. If that had gone, curtains. And anyway, there we are. And so he got this belt and put it on me, and I'm starting falling asleep. And the ambulance turned out. And they said, "Don't go to sleep, stay awake." And they kept even like shaking me on the way up the hospital, and that's another 5 minutes. And by the time I got up there, that was it. I couldn't remember anything else. And I woke up in the morning, and the nurse came up to me. She said, "I witnessed a miracle. There's no way that you should be alive and talking to me as you are now, sitting up in bed." And that was that. And that's the reason why I wondered, while I'm sitting in the prison cell, and I'm thinking, I don't understand this, because I've died 3 or 4 or 5 times. And I shouldn't be here. So I decided to start looking and reading into this scripture. And I asked there in that Wormwood Scrubs prison cell, as I even thought the bloke I was in with, he got the ump with me, I think. He was like so brainy. He'd done these Times crosswords in 5 minutes every day. And I just like played him chess all day long for about a month. And I think I won 1 game, and anyway, I ended up getting moved out of that cell and into another cell where there's some guy underneath of me, and he was doing 11 years there for drawing a gun on a police officer, and so there I was reading my Bible through this book of John, and starting to think to myself, like, right, and there was a song on his radio, and it was called "If God Had a Name One of Us on the Bus" by Joan Osborne. So I'm sitting there thinking, if God had a name one of us on the bus, and I'm starting to read through this book, and I am the way, the truth, and the life, and all these other scriptures and everything. And I just said then, okay, Jesus, I'm amazed that I'm still alive. There's something's you've been telling me something for the past few years now, and I've just not been bothered to even take any notice of you, and I've been running amok, doing stupid things, just living life like some demented nutcase town clown. And now it's time for me to listen to what you've got to say. So tell me then, show me who you are. And all of a sudden I was filled with this amazing thing. There's a spirit, the Holy Spirit came into me, and it opened my eyes. All of a sudden I was electrified with this amazing knowledge of who the Lord was. And he showed me who he was. And I burst into tears and started crying like a baby and shouting out, "I'm born again." My cellmate down below me, he said, what's happened to you? I just met Jesus. He said, "You're off your head." And I said, "No, I have." I said, "I want to see the pastor of the church, of the prison." And I went, as soon as Sunday come, I went running off to the church. And I went, "I've met Jesus. This is great." I said, "He was risen from the dead. He came to earth to die for me, washed me clean with his blood, and now I'm going to heaven with him. I've got a relationship with the risen Christ. This is fantastic, and I can't believe it, what's gone on in my life in these last few months." So as I got let out of prison, no gate arrest for murder, which I was expecting, and I went home, and I thought to myself, well, that's it. There's no more me going back to that rubbish no more. I'm a changed person. Something's happened to me inside spiritually. I don't feel any way at all like I was before I came into the jail. I feel exactly of a new person, born again, born from above, as its scriptures told. Born again. So here I am, still having a quick beer in the Nelson pub, and I thought to myself, right, no more business for me in cocaine, no more pills, no more cannabis, no more nothing. I've had, that's it, finished. Knock on the door, I got home. Mick, he came in, said, "We've got £50,000. I said, "I'm not doing it, Mick. I'm not." I said, "You need to come to visit church with me and meet Jesus." He went, "Are you off your head?" I went, "No, honestly." I said, "I've met Jesus, and I'm not doing no more drug dealing. See you later. If you want to come and knock on my door again, just come to go to church with me." So I'm sort of walking up the road then, the next day, and this guy in the pub, he said, what are you doing with yourself these days, Paul? I said, nothing now. I'm just thinking about doing something. I'm not sure what it is, but I ain't getting involved in drug dealing no more. I don't want that sort of stuff. I've had enough of it. I've met Jesus. And have you? I said, yes, I have. And he went, he said, why don't you do a magazine? I went, hang on a minute. I'll be back in a minute. I'll just have a wee. I'll talk to you about it. I went into the toilet. I come back out. He's gone. I thought, what was that? Who was that? Never met him before in my life. Magazine. So here I am walking up the road with my son after the pub, sober as a judge, and I'm starting to think to myself, magazine. What can I do? How can I do a magazine? I don't even know. I can't. I'm not very good at spelling. I'm not very good at this, that, and the other. But I know a lot of people. That's one good thing. Businesses around town. Yeah, okay, right. Then the voice coming to my head again. Go to the printers in London Road on Monday morning and tell them I've sent you. So off I went on this Monday morning, along to Burthorpe Printers, which I knew of in London Road in Hastings. Knocked on the door. Big fella come to the door. His name was Vic. Another very big man, and he said, hello, Paul, do you still boxing? How are you? What are you doing these days? I said, I've just come to see the owner. I've got something to talk to him about. He said, well, come in, it's Peter Burthorpe. I said, oh, okay, lovely. He showed me into a nice little room where there was a fishing tank and all that, blobbing around,
bit like that.
Like that, yeah, that was it. One of them it was. And I said, anyway, he come down and he went, Paul, he said, there's a boxing going. I said, I finished boxing. I said, but I've got something I've got to tell you. He said, what is it then? I said, God sent me along here Friday or Saturday, I think it was, and he said, you're going to help me out. And God wants me to talk to you because you're the owner of this place, Peter, and I think you can help me do a magazine. He said, no, why? I said, yeah. He said, let me get my wife. So off he went, get my wife. I thought, that's it. He's coming back with a white coat today. They really think I've gone mad. But he brought his wife down and she said, are you a Christian now then, Paul? And I said proudly, yes, I am. And she said, so are we. What can we do to help you? Now, that magazine lasted for 13 years.
Wow.
I earned a very good living out of it. It was amazing. It was just every month without fail, I had 65 advertisers giving me £50 a month, some of them, and that was in 1997. That lasted for 13 years, that magazine, and then I went off as a missionary and met my darling wife. Went over as a missionary, which you all see a picture in there as well, but things started really developing for me after that. After I'd done that magazine, I was earning a very good living. It was legal. It was a miraculous event. It was something that I never knew or understood or dreamed about, and I earned a good living, and then I went away as a missionary in India. I went to I was a missionary in Malta. I went over there as well, and I got around it all to the Lord, really, and now, as time goes by, I mean, things have happened over these past 23 years that are extraordinary. But ask me another question and see if you can find it.
So you said, in the very beginning when I introduced you, there's important work that you're doing now to help young people in Hastings.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Well, after we had this kids club that closed when the guy passed away, I felt like that was an introduction to it. It was like it was a forerunner, and I thought, well, this is because I was putting something back into a sport that I loved, but in a way that it was all sorts of sports, and board games, and just getting them out of the rut that they're in, and some of their parents, they're crack cocaine addicts, and they're even as bad as some worse than what we all are when we're kids, and doing some stuff that you really don't want them doing. But I wanted to give them all a chance, and so we started this thing off, and then I met my darling wife, and which is another amazing story. I had a dream about her 24 years ago in a red dress in a garden with flowers on a bench, and that's exactly where we sat down and and had our honeymoon on this bench in this garden in the Philippines.
Wow.
And I said, that's it. I said, that's you. You're the person I fleetingly saw in my dream 24 years ago. And she, and it's what a blessing, you know. And together we work really well in this ministry, and we both love kids, and she's lovely with kids and that. But we can't have kids because I'll tell you another little quick miracle. Before I went to India to do this missionary, because I thought, well, I'm going to call it Missionary Seed, this new thing. SEED stands for Support, Educate, Equip, Develop, see, which is good. And so I went off to India, and before I went to India, I went, because I belong to a church now by this time, you know, regularly going to worship and stuff and getting to know the Lord more, amazingly. And then as I'm there, you know, in this, he said, I said, I'm going to India, and they said, well, you better go and have your checkup. So I went to the doctors and had a checkup and to have these injections and that, and he took some blood and he come back and he said, I'm sorry to tell you, but you've got 3 to 5 years to live. This is in 19 something or other, or was it 2000? Oh yeah, so I think it was 1997, something like that, around that way, about 98 something. And he said, I'm sorry, he said, you've got aggressive prostate cancer, which was like aggressive, because although and that, and he said, you've got 3 to 5 years living. I said, well, I'm going to India. He said, no, you can't go to India. He said, you can't go to India. He said, you won't get no help over there. I said, well, I've already bought my ticket. I said, I've got to go. I said, by the size of all that, I said, I've got a really strong faith, and I believe that I'm going to be healed, you know. And whatever way God wants to do it, you know, with the blind man, he used mud. If he wants to use a doctor, he will. If he wants to do it whichever way he wants, he's in charge, so I'll leave it with him, you know, and so on and so forth. He walked upon water and stuff. He's God. Jesus is God, so he can do what he wants to do. If he wants to heal me, he'll heal me, whichever way he wants. And he said, you're off your head. I said, well, that's what I believe, and that's what I know to be the truth. So he said, okay. So off I went. So I got on this plane. And I got on the old computer like that, and I met somebody like I thought, right, Ratan Babu. He's a minister in the right. Yeah, I said, I'm coming to India, and I need to meet you because I need to get on with getting some stuff going with youth and young people that are suffering and not having anything, and they're living in poverty and all that. He said, great. He said, you're amazing. We've been praying for somebody like you. So off I went. He said, you'll recognise me by having a bunch of flowers. I'll be there at the airport waiting for you. Got out of the terminal, and there in front of me are 1,000 people, and 500 of them had bunches of flowers. I thought, oh dear. So anyway, it just so happened that I was the only white fella there. So we met up, and off we went, and I started doing this stuff with them. And then I said, when I go back home, I'll promise after 3 months I'll stay there for, and I promise that I'll start helping you out. And unfortunately, and if you do ever watch this, the other one, Dilip, I know that I told you I was going to send you all this money, which I sent loads of it over to Ratan, and they bought Bibles and everything else. But I didn't. I sent some to you, and I don't know what happened to it. I sent it by Western Union, and where it was in Orissa. And I was there with Orissa. You'll see a nice picture of me, all the kids. Thank you, 1066 country. And I thought, when I got back home, I never heard from them again. And in Orissa, they was killing Christians. The Hindus were killing them. The parents, this little campus was full of all these little kids. And so I don't know what happened to him. But if he's still alive, I'd just like to say, get in touch with me, and I'll send you some whatever you need for these little kiddie people. But there we are. We went from there, and then when I got home, I met my wife online on a Christian. I couldn't find a Christian for love nor money in Hastings. I mean, it was like looking for a needle in an haystack. I went to a few churches and all that. I mean, Paul Huggins, are you sure? Is he a Christian? You what? How did he become a Christian? It was amazing, you see. And so I couldn't find a decent wife. So, I mean, I thought, well, a Christian wife, I think it was, nobody would give me a chance. Maybe I weren't playing it right. But God had this idea. He had it already planned because of the dream. So when I found her, that's it, like a little whisper in your head, stop there. there, boom, oh no, okay. Off I went, married, into the garden, there's the girl with the dress that I saw. So we started developing, and her dad, who was a pastor, who worked in the oil industry, and a church called in Antipolo City, and all these kids, and if you want to watch it on YouTube, it's called Missionary Seed, Paul Huggins Missionary Seed. You'll see all these kids, so you can put a little clip with this in if you want. Missionary Seed with all these little kids, and they're all like there, and they're living in tin huts and sheds and everything else, and nobody lives off of about £1 a week, about like £1 a day, whatever. It's very bad. Like 26 million people are living in slum areas, and we worked in this slum area, and now we're still working with these kids. And this is now to 2022. We started working with them when it was 2017. And some of these kids like that, now they're at college and university, and then we're doing things with those children, and they're doing things that they would never have done if the Lord hadn't stepped in. So we're very, very grateful for that. And so we decided, when she miraculously got to this country, we decided that we start something like that over here. And so we're calling it Team Seed, Team Seed Youth Sports and Recreation, which is in Hastings. And we had a meeting just before Christmas at 7th of December. And on the 7th of December, 23 people turned up to this meeting, 3 of them police officers, and they told us that it's horrible. Everybody's burying. They think they're ostriches. There's nothing. It's all going to go away. But they're dealing in drugs. I mean, they're 12-year-old kids driving around on brand new £1,500 battery operated scooters. Their parents are drug cocaine addicts and crack cocaine addicts. They don't go to school. They're refusing to do this, and they say, you're the person that can do something with these kids. Look at your record. Look what you've done. Look how you've come out through that long dark tunnel. We're behind you. So we've started off now. I went out on shoot last Friday before the last one. We've decided we've got a good committee now. We've got a bank manager that was a friend of mine, another Christian. We've got Christian counsellors. We've got the Mayor of Hastings wanting to help us all out. We've got some good people all involved, and a good committee, and so we call it Team Seed, Youth Sports and Recreation, and Team Seed stands for Together Everybody Achieves More. That's the first one. When we support, educate, equip and develop ourselves and each other. And that's the acronym that will bring us together. So Friday before last, 3 kids turned up, very, very small amount. And then Burns said to me, well, look at all that lot all over there. They're on playing on the swings and riding their bikes about. I went and shouted out, come on out. You want a game of table tennis, bit of boxing and football training? Come over in the club. And they come over, so we had about 11 kids turn up. This week they brought their friends with them, so now it's going to be, and it's going to start, and we've got a lot of, way forward, and I'm hoping that we're going to, get some funding and stuff, and develop these kids to do something rather than getting in trouble like we was doing,
Amazing stuff.
What a journey. So for the people watching this then, how can they help and support you?
Well, I would like the money that I sell these books for.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to put the funding into the kitty, because we have to have matching funds, because for people all of a sudden they say you've got to have certain such and such. I don't mind going around and getting all the people to. I'm going to do another similar magazine thing, but I'm going to call it the Heart of Hastings Business A to Z Directory. So I'm going to charge people £1 a week and to have their name in our directory, and it is the Heart of Hastings. People in Hastings seem to be always gathered together. They always want to support each other, so I'm hoping that they might want to part with £1 a week. That's nothing to help a kid get out of trouble and do something in their life rather than get murdered or deal people drugs or whatever. So that's what we're doing with this kids club, and we want the book to be sold, and we want people to personally make donations, and we're going to get our bank account sorted next week. We've just been now registered with the company house and CIC, I think they call it, company or blah, 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 blah. But we've got a number, which is a nice one. And the books, my printer, who's veritycm.com, we'll write that out and put that on the screen if we can. Can we do that?
It all goes on. It goes under the video on the screen.
If we can get that on there, then so we've got a nice little website that they can get in touch with my printer and order books.
All your links will be below the video.
And we're only asking $7.95, and if you get them via my printer, then it would be we get more money because instead of Amazon. But you can get them off of Amazon. You can get them off of WH Smith's or Goodreads and all that. But you just look up Paul Huggins knocking out my demons on Google, and it'll bring you to all those sites that you can order a book from. But preferably, number one order, please do it from Verity.com printers. And if you want to give me a call, even, I don't mind sending one personally signed. What about that? I mean,
that's good.
Good
deal.
That'd be all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Is your number on your website then?
We ain't got a website yet, but we have got an email. So if you wanted to email knocking out my demons, all one word lowercase .com, knockingoutmydemons.com, then I will at gmail.com, knockingoutmydemons at gmail.com. If you want to email me, I will send you a book personally and my phone number, or leave me your phone number and we'll have a little chat.
Wow.
Fantastic. So all the links will be in the description box below this video. Just blown away by your story, man. The what you've been through, and then the redemption, the transformation. And it's just fantastic, to have met your wife and hear what you guys are doing. It's so inspirational. So please let us know what you thought about this video. Please support Paul. Go down to his links. All Jen's links will be down there as well. And brilliant, man.
Let's have a group hug.
Let's have a hug.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me. Boys. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well done. Fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here at Boomer and Jen, we offer a wide range of organic or recycled clothing. We all know our planet is important. We only have this one, so it's vital that we all work together to slow down and reverse the changes to the environment. Whilst we all know that big industry are having a significant effect on pollution, here at Boomer and Jen, we believe that if we all make small changes, we can do our part. Fast fashion causes detrimental effects to the planet. Not only is nearly 20% of global wastewater produced by the fast fashion industry, but there is a considerable amount of fast fashion ending up in landfill. So let's move away from fast fashion items that are only worn once or twice, and start wearing extremely comfortable, durable, and environmentally friendly clothing and ethical jewellery. Boomer and Jen was founded in a quiet town in Devon in 2018. It is now gone from strength to strength as the world is becoming more aware of the current climate situation, helping our customers to buy sustainable, quality clothing. All of our products are fair trade and registered with the Global Organic Textiles Standard Association. Check us out on organiccottonclothing.co.uk.
This podcast is sponsored by Gadfly Press. We are proud to announce the publication of Britain's #1 art forger, Max Brandrett, The Life of a Cheeky Faker. And from the back cover blurb, Max the Forger is an artist and gentleman whose colourful lifestyle has spanned over 70 years. He has lived under the strict regime of Bernardo's children's homes, been an elephant handler in the circus, lived rough, busked his way from Brighton to Bombay, sold his fakes up and down the country, dined with dukes, socialised with celebrities, associated with gangsters, served time in prison, and donated tens of thousands to charity. And through it all, he has never stopped smiling and loving life and missing his mum. Quote from the book. Mr. Brandrett, I do not see you as a malicious criminal, sighed the judge. But why, oh why, do you continue to use your God-given talent in this way? I just can't help myself, Your Honour. It's like an addiction, I grinned. Available worldwide on Amazon. Link in the description box below this video. Thank you for supporting our sponsor.